Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 There we go. And welcome to some more reading and Vaishnava literatures live streaming to the world. Okay, 2 people. But that doesn't matter. We'll read to the 4 walls if we have to. This evening, we're reading in the Srimad Bhagavatam, canto 4, chapter 12. Chapter is called Dhruva Maharaj Goes Back to Godhead. And we're on text number 19. I don't know what to say. Just gonna read, I guess. It's a pretty cool moment because this is the exact moment that Dhruva Maharaj sees he becomes liberated, and he sees the airplane coming down from the spiritual sky to come see him and to carry him away back to the spiritual world. So that's where we pick up. It's kind of exciting. So yeah, I'll just start reading. So as soon as the symptoms of his liberation were manifest, he saw a very, very beautiful airplane coming down from the sky, as if the brilliant full moon were coming down, illuminating all the 10 directions. Purport. There are different levels of acquired knowledge: direct knowledge, knowledge received from authorities, transcendental knowledge, knowledge beyond the senses, and finally spiritual knowledge. When one surpasses the stage of acquiring knowledge by the descending process, he is immediately situated on the transcendental platform. Dhruva Maharaj, being liberated from the material concept of life, was situated in transcendental knowledge, and could perceive the presence of a transcendental airplane, which was as brilliant as the full moon light. This is not possible in the stages of direct or indirect perception of knowledge. Such knowledge is a special favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One can, however, rise to this platform of knowledge by the gradual process of advancing in devotional service, or Krishna consciousness. Text 20. Translation. Dhruva Maharaj saw 2 very beautiful associates of Lord Vishnu in the plain. They had 4 hands and a blackish bodily luster. They were very youthful, and their eyes were just like reddish lotus flowers. They held clubs in their hands, and they were dressed in very attractive garments with helmets, and were decorated with necklaces, bracelets, and earrings. Purport. The inhabitants of Vishnu Loka are of the same bodily feature as Lord Vishnu, and they also hold club, conch shell, lotus flower, and disc. In this verse, it is distinctly stated that they had 4 hands and were nicely dressed. As described, the description of their bodily decorations corresponds exactly to that of Vishnu. So the 2 uncommon personalities who descended from the airplane came directly from Vishnu Loka, of the planet where Lord Vishnu lives. Text 21. Dhruva Maharaj, seeing that these uncommon personalities were direct servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, immediately stood up. Being puzzled, in hastiness he forgot how to receive them in the proper way. Therefore he simply offered obeisances with folded hands and chanted, and glorified the holy names of the Lord. Purport. Chanting of the holy names of the Lord is perfect in every way. When Dhruva Maharaj saw the Vishnu Dutas, the direct associates of Lord Vishnu, 4-handed and nicely decorated, he could understand who they were. but for the time being was puzzled. Simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord, the Hare Krishna mantra, he could satisfy the uncommon guests who had all of a sudden arrived before him. The chanting of the holy name of the Lord is perfect, even though one does not know how to please Lord Vishnu or his associates. Simply by sincerely chanting the holy name of the Lord, everything becomes perfect. A devotee, therefore, either in danger or in happiness, constantly chants the Hare Krishna mantra. When he is in danger, he is immediately relieved, and when he is in a position to see Lord Vishnu or his associates directly, by chanting this Maha Mantra, he can please the Lord. This is the absolute nature of the Maha Mantra. Either in danger or in happiness, it can be chanted without limitation. Okay, text 22. Translation. Dhruva Maharaj was always absorbed in thinking of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. His heart was full with Krishna. When the two confidential servants of the Supreme Lord, who were named Nanda and Sunanda, approached him, smiling happily, Dhruva stood with folded hands, bowing humbly. They then addressed him as follows. Purport. In this verse, the word Pushkarananbha Samatau is significant. Krishna, or Lord Vishnu, is known for his lotus eyes, lotus navel, lotus feet, and lotus palms. Here he is called Pushkara Nabha, which means the Supreme Personality of Godhead who has a lotus navel, unquote. And Samatau means two confidential or very obedient servants. The materialistic way of life differs from the spiritual way of life in that one is disobedience and the other is obedience to the will of the Supreme Lord. All living entities are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and they are supposed to be always agreeable to the order of the Supreme Person. That is perfect oneness. In the Vaikuntha world, all the living entities are in oneness with the Supreme Godhead because they never defy his orders. Here in the material world, however, they are not samatha, agreeable, but always asamatha, disagreeable. This human form of life is a chance to be trained to be agreeable to the orders of the Supreme Lord. To bring about this training in society is the mission of the Krishna consciousness movement. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, the laws of material nature are very strict. No one can overcome the stringent laws of material nature. But one who becomes a surrendered soul and agrees to do the order of the Supreme Lord can easily overcome those stringent laws. The example of Dhruva Maharaj is very fitting. Simply by becoming agreeable to the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and by developing love of Godhead, Dhruva got the chance to personally meet the confidential servants of Lord Vishnu face to face. What was possible for Dhruva Maharaj is possible for everyone. Anyone who very seriously engages in devotional service can obtain, in due course of time, the same perfection of the human form of life. Text 23. Translation. Nanda and Sunanda, the two confidential associates of Lord Vishnu, said, Dear King, let there be all good fortune unto you. Please attentively hear what we shall say. When you were only 5 years old, you underwent severe austerities, and you thereby greatly satisfied the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. What was possible for Dhruva Maharaj is possible for anyone. Any 5-year-old child can be trained, and within a very short time his life will be successful by realization of Krishna consciousness. Unfortunately, this training is lacking all over the world. It is necessary for the leaders of the Krishna consciousness movement to start educational institutions in different parts of the world to train children, starting at the age of 5 years. Thus, such children will not become hippies or spoiled children of society. Rather, they can all become devotees of the Lord. The face of the world will then change automatically. Text 24. We are representatives of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Creator of the whole universe, who carries in his hand the bow named Sharanga. We have been specifically deputed to take you to the spiritual world. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that simply by knowing his transcendental pastimes, whether within this material world or in the spiritual world, anyone who understands factually who he is, how he appears, and how he acts can be immediately fit for transference to the spiritual world. This principle, stated in the Bhagavad Gita, operates in the same case of King Dhruva. Throughout his life, he tried to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead by austerity and penances. Now, the mature result was that Dhruva Maharaj became fit to be carried to the spiritual world, accompanied by the confidential associates of the Lord. Text 25. Translation. To achieve Vishnu Loka is very difficult, but by your austerity you have conquered. Even the great rishis and demigods cannot achieve this position. Simply to see the supreme abode, the Vishnu planet, the sun and moon, and all other planets, stars, lunar mansions, and solar systems are circumambulating it. Now please come, you are welcome to go there. Purport. Even in this material world, the so-called scientists, philosophers, and mental speculators strive to merge into the spiritual sky, but they can never go there. But a devotee, by executing devotional service, not only realizes what the spiritual world actually is, but factually goes there to live an eternal life of bliss and knowledge. The Krishna consciousness movement is so potent that by adopting these principles of life and developing love of God, one can very easily go back home to Godhead. Here the practical example is the case of Dhruva Maharaj. While the scientists and philosophers go to the moon, but are disappointed in their attempts to stay there and live, the devotee makes an easy journey to other planets and ultimately goes back to Godhead. Devotees have no interest in seeing other planets, but while going back to Godhead, they see all of them as passing phases, just as one who is going to a distant place passes through many different small stations. Translation. Text 26. Dear King Dhruva, neither your forefathers nor anyone else before you ever achieved such a transcendental planet. The planet known as Vishnu Loka, where Lord Vishnu personally resides, is the highest of all. It is worshipable by the inhabitants of all other planets within the universe. Please come with us and live there eternally. Purport. When Dhruva Maharaj went to perform austerities, he was very determined to achieve a post never dreamed of by his forefathers. His father was Uttanapada, his grandfather was Manu, and his great-grandfather was Lord Brahma. So Dhruva wanted a kingdom even greater than Lord Brahma could achieve, and he requested Narada Muni to give him facility for achieving it. The associates of Lord Vishnu reminded him that not only his forefathers, but everyone else before him was unable to attain Vishnu Loka, the planet where Lord Vishnu resides. This is because everyone within this material world is either a karmi, a jnani, or a yogi, but there are hardly any pure devotees. The transcendental planet known as Vishnu Loka is especially meant for devotees, not for karmis, jnanis, or yogis. Great rishis or demigods can hardly approach Brahmaloka, and as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Brahmaloka is not a permanent residence. Lord Brahma's duration of life is so long that it is difficult to estimate even the duration of one day in his life, and yet Lord Brahma also dies, as do the residents of his planet. Bhagavad Gita 8:16 says, Abrahma bhuvana loka punar arvartinorjuna. Except for those who go to Vishnu Loka, everyone is subject to the four principles of material life, namely birth, death, old age, and disease. The Lord says, Yad gatva na nivartante tad tama paramamama. Quote, the planet from which, once going, no one returns is my supreme abode. Unquote. Bhagavad Gita 15.6, Bhagavad Gita 15.6, yeah. Dhruva Maharaj was reminded, you are going in our company to that planet from which no one returns to this material world. unquote. Material scientists are attempting to go to the moon and other planets, but they cannot imagine going to the topmost planet, Brahmaloka, for it is beyond their imagination. By material calculation, traveling at the speed of light, it would take 40,000 light years to reach the topmost planet. Wow. By mechanical processes, we are unable to reach the topmost planet of this universe, but the process called Bhakti-yoga, as executed by Dhruva Maharaj, can give one the facility not only to reach other planets within this universe, but also to reach beyond this universe to each Vishnu Loka planet. We have outlined this in our small booklet, Easy Journey to Other Planets. Text 27. Translation. O Immortal One, this unique airplane has been sent by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is worshipped by select prayers, and who is the chief of all living entities. You are quite worthy to board such a plane. Purport. According to astronomical calculation, along with the pole star there is another star which is called Shishumara, where Lord Vishnu, who is in charge of the maintenance of this material world, resides. Shishumara, or Dhruvaloka, can never be reached by anyone but the Vaishnavas, as will be described by the following shlokas. The associates of Lord Vishnu brought the special airplane for Dhruva Maharaj and then informed him that Lord Vishnu had especially sent this airplane. The Vishnu Loka airplane does not move by mechanical arrangement. There are three processes for moving in outer space. One of the processes is known to the modern scientists. It is called Kapota Vayu. Ka means outer space, and Pota means ship. There's a second process also called Kapota Vayu. Kapota means, one word, pigeon. One can train pigeons to carry one into outer space. You can train pigeons. I lost my spot. The third process is very subtle. It is called Akasha Patana. This Akasha Patana system is also material. Just as the mind can fly anywhere one likes without mechanical arrangement, so the Akasha Patana airplane can fly at the speed of the mind. Beyond this Akasha Patana, the system is the Vaikuntha process, which is completely spiritual. The airplane sent by Lord Vishnu to carry Dhruva Maharaj to Shishumara was a completely spiritual transcendental plane. Material scientists can neither see such vehicles nor imagine how they fly in the air. The material scientist has no information about the spiritual sky, although it is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. Paras tasmatu bhavo jnana. Okay, text 28. Translation. The great sage Maitreya continued, Maharaj Dhruva was very dear to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When he heard the sweet speeches of the Lord's chief associates in the Vaikuntha planet, he immediately took his sacred bath, dressed himself with suitable ornaments, and performed his daily spiritual duties. Thereafter he offered his respectful obeisances to the great sages present there and accepted their blessings. Purport. We should mark how dutiful Dhruva Maharaj was in his devotional service, even at the time he left this material world. He was constantly alert in the performance of his devotional duties. Every devotee should take his bath early in the morning and decorate his body with tilak. In Kali Yuga, one can hardly acquire gold or jeweled ornaments, but the 12 tilak marks on the body are sufficient as auspicious decorations to purify the body. Since Dhruva Maharaj was living at that time at Bhadraka Ashram, there were other great sages there. He did not become puffed up because the airplane sent by Lord Vishnu was awaiting him. As a humble Vaishnava, he accepted blessings from all the sages before riding on the plane brought by the chief of the Vaikuntha associates. Text 29. Before getting aboard, Dhruva Maharaj worshipped the airplane, circumambulated it, and also offered obeisances to the associates of Vishnu. In the meantime, he became as brilliant and illuminating as molten gold. He was thus completely prepared to board the transcendental plane. Purport. In the absolute world, the plane, the associates of Lord Vishnu, and Lord Vishnu himself are all spiritual. There is no material contamination. In quality, everything there is one. As Lord Vishnu is worshipable, so also are his associates, his paraphernalia, his airplane, and his abode. For everything of Vishnu's is as good as Lord Vishnu. Dhruva Maharaj knew all this very well, as a pure Vaishnava, and he offered his respects to the associates and to the plane before writing it. In the meantime, his body changed into spiritual existence, and therefore it was illuminating like molten gold. In this way, he also became one with the other paraphernalia of Vishnu Loka. Mayavadi philosophers cannot imagine how this oneness can be achieved, even in different varieties. Their idea of oneness is that there is no variety. Therefore they have become impersonalists. As Shishumara, Vishnu Loka or Dhruva Loka are completely different from this material world, so a Vishnu temple within this world is also completely different from this material world. As soon as we are in a temple, we should know very well that we are situated differently from the material world. In the temple, Lord Vishnu, his throne, his room, and all other things associated with the temple are transcendental. The three modes, Sattva-guna, Rajaguna, and Tamaguna, have no entrance into the temple. It is said, therefore, that to live in the forest is in the mode of goodness, to live in the city is in the mode of passion, and to live in a brothel, liquor shop, or slaughterhouse is in the mode of ignorance. But to live in the temple means to live in Vishnu Loka. Everything in the temple is as worshipable as Lord Vishnu or Krishna. Text 30. Translation. When Dhruva Maharaj was attempting to get on the transcendental plane, he saw death personified approach him. Not caring for death, however, he took advantage of the opportunity to put his feet on the head of death, and thus he got up on the airplane, which was as big as a house. Purport. To take the passing away of a devotee and the passing away of a non-devotee as one and the same is completely misleading. While sending the transcendental airplane, Dhruva Maharaj suddenly saw death personified before him, but he was not afraid. Instead of death's giving him trouble, Dhruva Maharaj took advantage of death's presence and put his feet on the head of death. People with a poor fund of knowledge do not know the difference between the death of a devotee and the death of a non-devotee. In this connection, an example can be given. A cat carries its kittens in its mouth, and it also carries a rat in its mouth. Superficially, the catching of the rat and the kitten appear to be one and the same, but actually they are not. When the cat catches the rat in its mouth, it means death for the rat, whereas when the cat catches the kitten enjoys it. When Dhruva Maharaj boarded the airplane, he took advantage of the arrival of Death personified, who came to offer him obeisances. Putting his feet on the head of Death, he got up on the unique airplane, which is described here to be as big as a house, griham. There are many other similar instances in Bhagavata literature. It is stated that when Kardama Muni created an airplane to carry his wife, Devahuti, all over the universe, the airplane was like a big city, carrying many houses, lakes, and gardens. Modern scientists have manufactured big airplanes, but they are packed with passengers who experience all sorts of discomfort while riding in them. Prabhupada should know. He did a lot of airplane travel, huh? Material scientists are not even perfect in manufacturing a material airplane. In order to compare to the plane used by Kardama or the plane sent from Vishnu Loka, they must manufacture an airplane equipped like a big city, with all the comforts of life, lakes, gardens, parks, etc. Their plane must be able to fly in outer space and hover, and visit all other planets. If they invent such a plane, they will not have to make different space stations for fuel to travel into outer space. Such a plane would have an unlimited supply of fuel, or, like the plane from Vishnu Loka, would fly without it. Yeah, good luck with that. Text 31. Translation. At that time, drums and kettle drums resounded from the sky. The chief Gandharvas began to sing, and other demigods showered flowers like torrents of rain upon Dhruva Maharaj. Text 32. Dhruva was seated in the transcendental airplane, which was just about to start, when he remembered his poor mother Suniti. He thought to himself, "How shall I go alone to the Vaikuntha planet and leave behind my poor mother?" Purport. Dhruva had a feeling of obligation to his mother, Suniti. It was Suniti who had given him the clue which had now enabled him to be personally carried to the Vishnu planet by the associates of Lord Vishnu. He now remembered her and wanted to take her with him. Actually, Dhruva Maharaja's mother, Suniti, was his Pata Pradarshaka Guru. Sorry, this is a tough Sanskrit word. Pata Pradarshaka Guru means the guru or the spiritual master who shows the way. Unquote. Such a guru is sometimes called Shiksha Guru. Although Narada Muni was his Diksha Guru, initiating spiritual master, Suniti, his mother, was the first who gave him instruction on how to achieve the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is the duty of the Shiksha Guru or Diksha Guru to instruct the disciple in the right way, and it depends on the disciple to execute the process. According to Shastric injunctions, there is no difference between Shiksha Guru and Diksha Guru, and generally, the Shiksha Guru later on becomes the Diksha Guru. Suniti, however, being a woman and specifically his mother, could not become Dhruva Maharaja's Diksha Guru. Still, he was not less obligated to Suniti. There was no question of carrying Narada Muni to Vaikuntha Loka, but Dhruva Maharaj thought of his mother. Whatever plan the Supreme Personality of Godhead contemplates immediately fructifies. Similarly, a devotee who is completely dependent on the Supreme Lord can also fulfill all his wishes by the grace of the Lord. The Lord fulfills his wishes independently, but a devotee fulfills his wishes simply by being dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, as soon as Dhruva Maharaj thought of his poor mother, he was assured by the associates of Vishnu that Suniti was also going to Vishnu Loka in another plane. Dhruva Maharaj had thought that he was going alone to Vaikuntha Loka, leaving behind his mother, which was not very auspicious because people would criticize him for going alone to Vishnu Loka and not carrying with him Suniti, who had given him so much. But Dhruva Maharaj also considered that he was not personally the Supreme. Therefore, if Krishna fulfilled his desire, only then would it be possible. Krishna could immediately understand his mind, and he told Dhruva that his mother was also going with him. This incident proves that a pure devotee like Dhruva Maharaj can fulfill all his desires by the grace of the Lord. He becomes exactly like the Lord, and thus, whenever he thinks of anything, his wish is immediately fulfilled. Excuse me. Wow. Such is the power of a devotee. Those are some pretty powerful and profound statements by Srila Prabhupada there. The oneness of the desire and of the devotee and the Lord, the reciprocation. Those statements are pretty profound. Text 33. Translation. The great associates of Vishnu Loka, Nanda and Sunanda, could understand the mind of Dhruva Maharaj, and thus they showed him that his mother, Suniti, was going forward in another plane. I think there's a picture here somewhere. Nope, no picture. Oh, no, here it is. There's a picture. This is our low-tech. There's Suniti's airplane, I think. No, it's up here. Yeah, it's right there. And Dhruva Maharaj. And Nanda and Sunanda. Oh, brilliant. And then I lost my spot. I'll find it in a jiffy. Chapter 12. Yes. Text 33. So purport. This incident proves that the Shiksha or Diksha Guru, who has a disciple who strongly executes devotional service like Dhruva Maharaj, can be carried by the disciple, even though the instructor is not as advanced. Hey, that sounds good. Although Suniti was an instructor to Dhruva Maharaj, she could not go to the forest because she was a woman, nor could she execute austerities and penances as Dhruva Maharaj did. Still, Dhruva Maharaj was able to take his mother with him. Similarly, Prahlad Maharaj also delivered his atheistic father, Hiranyakashipu. The conclusion is that a disciple or an offspring who is a very strong devotee can carry with him to Vaikuntha Loka either his father, mother, or Shiksha or Diksha Guru. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati Thakur used to say, quote, "If I could perfectly deliver even one soul back home, back to Godhead, I would think my mission, propagating Krishna consciousness, to be successful." Jai. Well, that's encouraging. The Krishna consciousness movement is spreading now all over the world, and sometimes I think that even though I am crippled in many ways, if one of my disciples becomes as strong as Dhruva Maharaj, then he will be able to carry me with him to Vaikuntha Loka. Prabhupada, very humble. Text 34. While Dhruva Maharaj was passing through space, he gradually saw all the planets of the solar system, and on the path he saw all the demigods and their airplanes showering flowers upon him like rain. Purport. There is a Vedic version, Yasmin vigyate sarvam evam vigyatam bhavati, which means that by knowing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, everything becomes known to the devotee. Similarly, by going to the planet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one can know all the other planetary systems on the path to Vaikuntha. We should remember that Dhruva Maharaj's body was different from our bodies. While boarding the Vaikuntha plane, his body changed to a completely spiritual golden hue. No one can surpass the higher planets in a material body, but when one gets a spiritual body, he can travel not only to the higher planetary system of this material world, but even to the still higher planetary system known as Vaikuntha Loka. It is well known that Narada Muni travels everywhere, both in the spiritual and material worlds. So it should be noted also that while Suniti was going to Vaikuntha Loka, she also changed her body into spiritual form. Like Sri Suniti, every mother should train her child to become a devotee like Dhruva Maharaj. Suniti instructed her son, even at the age of 5, to be unattached to worldly affairs and to go to the forest to search out the Supreme Lord. She never desired that her son remain at home comfortably without ever undertaking austerities and penances to achieve the favor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Every mother, like Suniti, must take care of her son and train him to become a brahmachari from the age of 5 years and to undergo austerities and penances for spiritual realization. The benefit will be that if her son becomes a strong devotee like Dhruva, certainly not only will he be transferred back home, back to Godhead, but she will also be transferred with him to the spiritual world, even though she may be unable to undergo austerities and penances in executing devotional service. Wow, it looks like austerities and penances and in doing devotional service is pretty important. Guess you can't make spiritual advancement without doing some austerity. Go figure. Text 35. Translation. Dhruva Maharaj thus surpassed the 7 planetary systems of the great sages who are known as Saptarishi. Beyond that region, he achieved the transcendental situation of permanent life in the planet where Lord Vishnu lives. Purport. The plane was piloted by the 2 chief associates of Lord Vishnu, namely Sunanda and Nanda. Only such spiritual astronauts can pilot their airplane beyond the 7 planets and arrive in the region of eternal blissful life. It is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita also, Paras tasmatu bhavo jnaha, that beyond this planetary system begins the spiritual sky, where everything is permanent and blissful. The planets there are known as Vishnu Loka or Vaikuntha Loka. Only there can one get an eternal blissful life of knowledge. Below Vishnu Loka is the material universe, where Lord Brahma and others in the Brahma Loka can live until the annihilation of this universe. But that life is not permanent. That is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, Abrahma Bhuvana Loka. Even if one goes to the topmost planet, one cannot achieve eternal life. Only by arriving in Vaikuntha Loka can one live an eternally blissful life. Text 36. Translation. The self-effulgent Vaikuntha planets, by whose illumination alone all the illuminating planets within this material world give off reflective light, cannot be reached by those who are not merciful to other living entities. Only persons who are constantly engaged in welfare activities for other living entities can reach the Vaikuntha planets. Purport. Here is a description of the two aspects of the Vaikuntha planets. The first is that in the Vaikuntha sky there is no need for the sun and moon. This is confirmed by the Upanishads as well as Bhagavad Gita. Natad basayate suryo na shashanko napavakaha. In the spiritual world, the Vaikuntha Lokas are themselves illuminated. There is, therefore, no need of sun, moon, or electric light. It is in fact the illumination of the Vaikuntha Lokas which is reflected in the material sky. Only by this reflection are the suns and the material universes illuminated. After the illumination of the sun, all the stars and moons are illuminated. In other words, all the luminaries in the material sky borrow illumination from Vaikuntha Loka. From this material world, however, people can be transferred to the Vaikuntha Loka if they increasingly engage in welfare activities for all other living entities. Such incessant welfare activities can really be performed only in Krishna consciousness. There is no philanthropic work within this material world but Krishna consciousness that can engage a person 24 hours a day. A Krishna conscious being is always engaged in planning how to take all of suffering humanity back home, back to Godhead. Even if one is not successful in reclaiming all the fallen souls back to Godhead, still, because he is Krishna conscious, his path to Vaikuntha Loka is open. He personally becomes purified to enter the Vaikuntha Lokas, and if anyone follows such a devotee, he also enters into Vaikuntha Loka. Others who engage in envious activities are known as karmis. Karmis are envious of one another. Simply for sense gratification, they can kill thousands of innocent animals. Jnanis are not as sinful as karmis, but they do not try to reclaim others back to Godhead. They perform austerities for their own liberation. Yogis are also engaged in self-aggrandizement by trying to attain mystic powers. But devotees, Vaishnavas, who are servants of the Lord, come forward in the actual field of work in Krishna consciousness to reclaim fallen souls. Only Krishna-conscious persons are eligible to enter into the spiritual world. That is clearly stated in this verse and is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, wherein the Lord says that there is no one dearer to him than those who preach the gospel of Bhagavad Gita to the world. Text 37. Persons who are peaceful, equipoised, cleansed, and purified, and who know the art of pleasing all other living entities, keep friendship only with devotees of the Lord. They alone can very easily achieve the perfection of going back home, back to Godhead. Purport. The description of this verse fully indicates that only devotees are eligible to enter into the kingdom of Godhead. The first point stated is that devotees are peaceful, for they have no demands for their personal sense gratification. They are simply dedicated to the service of the Lord. Karmis cannot be peaceful because they have immense demands for sense gratification. As for Jnanis, they cannot be peaceful because they are too busy trying to attain liberation, or merge into the existence of the Supreme. Similarly, yogis are also restless to get mystic powers. But a devotee is peaceful because he is fully surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thinks of himself as completely helpless, just as a child feels complete peace in depending on the parents. So a devotee is completely peaceful, for he depends on the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So just a quick note here, as devotees, like it said earlier, when one practices devotional service, they'll pass through all the different planetary systems and view all the different levels of realization. And similarly, one will pass through the Brahma Jyoti before they reach the spiritual planet. So knowing this, one can become a devotee or engage in devotional service with the sole purpose of becoming liberated, and so therefore they just do austerities and they don't seek to liberate others in Krishna consciousness. So what this is saying is that one can never, a devotee, or one will never become a full-fledged devotee unless they engage in, somehow or another, trying to bring other people into Krishna consciousness. This is the full manifestation of someone being a devotee. Simply trying to liberate oneself is a attitude similar to the jnanis or the impersonalists, and is kind of more or less becomes rejected by the devotees, because the devotee is full of energy and they want everyone to be happy, and they see no obstacles for themselves in attempting to bring other people into Krishna consciousness. So anyway, interesting point. We'll continue here. A devotee is equiposed. He sees everyone on the same transcendental platform. A devotee knows that although a conditioned soul has a particular type of body according to his past fruitive activities, factually everyone is part of the Supreme Lord. A devotee sees all living entities with spiritual vision and does not discriminate on the platform of the bodily concept of life. Such qualities develop only in the association of devotees. Without the association of devotees, one cannot advance in Krishna consciousness. Therefore, we have established the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Factually, whoever lives in this society automatically develops Krishna consciousness. Devotees are dearer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is only dear to devotees. On this platform only can one make progress in Krishna consciousness. Persons in Krishna consciousness, or devotees of the Lord, can please everyone, as is evident in the Krishna consciousness movement. We invite everyone without discrimination. We request everyone to sit down and chant the Hare Krishna mantra and take as much prasada as we can supply. And thus everyone is pleased with us. This is the qualification. Sarva Bhutanurajanaha. As far as purification, no one can be more pure than devotees. Anyone who once utters the name of Vishnu immediately becomes purified, inside and outside. Yat smaret pundarikaksham. Since a devotee constantly chants the Hare Krishna mantra, no contamination of the material world can touch him. He is therefore actually purified. Muchihoya suchihoya yadi Krishna bhaje. It is said that even a cobbler, or a person born in the family of a cobbler, can be elevated to the position of a brahmana, suchi, if he takes to Krishna consciousness. Any person who is purely Krishna conscious and who engages in chanting the Hare Krishna mantra is the purest in the whole universe. Text 38. In this way, the fully Krishna conscious Dhruva Maharaj, the exalted son of Maharaj Uttanapada, attained the summit of the three statuses of planetary systems. Purport. The exact Sanskrit terminology for Krishna consciousness is here mentioned. Krishna Parayanaha. Parayana means going forward. Anyone who is going forward to the goal of Krishna is called Krishna Parayana, or fully Krishna conscious. The example of Dhruva Maharaj indicates that every Krishna conscious person can expect to reach the topmost summit of all three planetary systems within the universe. A Krishna conscious person can occupy an exalted position beyond the imagination of any ambitious materialist. Text 39. Saint Maitreya continued, My dear Vidura, descendant of Kuru, as a head of a bull. I'm having a hard time here. My dear Vidura, descendant of Kuru, as a herd of bulls circumambulates a central pole on their right side, all the luminaries within the universal sky unceasingly circumambulate the abode of Dhruva Maharaj with great force and speed. Purport. Each and every planet within the universe travels at a very high speed. From a statement in Srimad Bhagavatam, it is understood that even the sun travels 16,000 miles in a second. And from Brahma Samhita we understand from the shloka, Yat chakshuresha savita sakala grahanam, that the sun is considered to be the eye of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, and it also has a specific orbit within which it circles. Similarly, all other planets have their specific orbits, but together all of them encircle the pole star, or Dhruva-loka, where Dhruva Maharaj is situated at the summit of the three worlds. We can only imagine how highly exalted the actual position of a devotee is, and certainly we cannot even conceive how exalted is the position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Let's see here. If I can finish this chapter, I will, but it's pretty long. Keep going. Text 40. After observing the glories of Dhruva Maharaj, the great sage Narada, playing his veena, went to the sacrificial arena of the Prachetas and very happily chanted the following 3 verses. Purport. The great sage Narada was the spiritual master of Dhruva Maharaj. Certainly he was very glad to see Dhruva's glories. As a father is very happy to see the son's advancement in every respect, so the spiritual master is very happy to observe the ascendancy of his disciple. Text 41. Translation. The great sage Narada said, simply by the influence of his spiritual advancement and powerful austerity, Dhruva Maharaj, the son of Suniti, who is devoted to her husband, acquired an exalted position not possible to attain even for the so-called Vedantists, or strict followers of the Vedic principles, not to speak of ordinary human beings. Purport. In this verse, the word Veda-vadinaha is very significant. Generally, a person who strictly follows the Vedic principles is called Vedavadi. There are also so-called Vedantists who advertise themselves as There are also so-called Vedantists who advertise themselves as followers of Vedanta philosophy, but who misinterpret the Vedanta. The expression Vedavadarata is also found in the Bhagavad Gita, referring to persons who are attached to the Vedas without understanding the purport of the Vedas. Such persons may go on talking about the Vedas or may execute austerities in their own way, but it is not possible for them to attain such an exalted position as Dhruva Maharaj. As far as ordinary kings are concerned, it is not possible at all. The specific mention of kings is significant because formerly kings were also Rajarishis, for the kings were as good as great sages. Dhruva Maharaj was a king, and at the same time he was as learned as a great sage. But without devotional service, neither a great king, a kshatriya, nor a great brahmana strictly adhering to the Vedic principles can be elevated to the exalted position attained by Dhruva Maharaj. Because they have to become devotees. Text 42. The great sage Narada continued, just see how Dhruva Maharaj, aggrieved at the harsh words of his stepmother, went to the forest at the age of only 5 years, and under my direction underwent austerity. Although the Supreme Personality of Godhead is unconquerable, Dhruva Maharaj defeated him with the specific qualifications possessed by the Lord's devotees. Purport. The Supreme Godhead is unconquerable. No one can conquer the Lord. But he voluntarily accepts subordination to the devotional qualities of his devotees. For example, Lord Krishna accepted subordination to the control of Mother Yashoda because she was a great devotee. The Lord likes to be under the control of his devotees. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita it is said that everyone comes before the Lord and offers him exalted prayers, but the Lord does not feel as pleased when offered such prayers as he does when a devotee out of pure love chastises him as a subordinate. The Lord forgets his exalted position and willingly submits to his pure devotee. Dhruva Maharaj conquered the Supreme Lord because at a very tender age, only 5 years old, he underwent all the austerities of devotional service. This devotional service was of course executed under the direction of a great sage, Narada. This is the first principle of devotional service, Adau Guru Vashrayam. In the beginning, one must accept a bona fide spiritual master, and if a devotee follows strictly the directions of the spiritual master, as Dhruva Maharaj followed the instructions of Narada Muni, then it is not difficult for him to achieve the favor of the Lord. The sum total of devotional qualities is development of unalloyed love for Krishna. This unalloyed love for Krishna can be achieved simply by hearing about Krishna. Lord Chaitanya accepted this principle, that if one in any position submissively hears the transcendental message spoken by Krishna or about Krishna, then gradually he develops the quality of unalloyed love, and by that love only he can conquer the unconquerable. The Mayavadi philosophers aspire to become one with the Supreme Lord, but a devotee surpasses that position. Not only does a devotee become one in quality with the Supreme Lord, but he sometimes becomes the father, mother, or master of the Lord. Arjuna also, by his devotional service, made Lord Krishna his chariot driver. He ordered the Lord, "Put my chariot here," and the Lord executed his order. These are some examples of how a devotee can acquire the exalted position of conquering the unconquerable. So the method prescribed by Lord Chaitanya we're doing right now, this is it. This is it. And this was actually the beginning of real spiritual life, because everything, it's all internal. Hearing all of these things develops this internal understanding. Following Varnashram Dharma, Lord Chaitanya rejected that as external. That this is more important. Hearing and knowing about the Lord. We read that earlier. Dhruva Maharaj spent his whole life trying to understand the Lord. That was his main big qualification, is that he gained knowledge. And it can be done so just by reading this book here. So this is time well spent. Text 43. Dhruva Maharaj attained an exalted position at the age of only 5 or 6 years, after undergoing austerity for 6 months. Alas, a great Kshatriya cannot achieve such a position even after undergoing austerities for many years. Purport. Dhruva Maharaj is described here as Kshatra Bandhuhu, which indicates that he was not fully trained as a Kshatriya because he was only 5 years old. He was not a mature Kshatriya. A Kshatriya or Brahmana has to take training. A boy born in the family of a Brahmana is not immediately a Brahmana. He has to take up the training and the purificatory processes. The great sage Narada Muni was very proud of having a devotee disciple like Dhruva Maharaj. He had many other disciples, but he was very pleased with Dhruva Maharaj because in one lifetime, by dint of his severe penance and austerities, he had achieved Vaikuntha, which is never achieved by any other king's son or Rajarshi throughout the whole universe. There is the instance of the great king Bharat, who was also a great devotee, but he attained Vaikuntha Loka in 3 lives. In the first life, although he executed austerities in the forest, he became victim to much affection for a small deer, and in his next life he had to take his birth as a deer. Although he had a deer's body, he remembered his spiritual position, but he still had to wait until the next life for perfection. In the next life he took birth as Jadabharat. Of course, in that life he was completely freed from all material entanglement, and he attained perfection and was elevated to Vaikuntha Loka. The lesson from the life of Dhruva Maharaj is that if one likes, one can attain Vaikuntha Loka in one life, without waiting for many other lives. My Guru Maharaj, Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Sarasvati Goswami Prabhupada, used to say that every one of his disciples could attain Vaikuntha Loka in this life, without waiting for another life to execute devotional service. One simply has to become as serious and sincere as Dhruva Maharaj. Then it is quite possible to attain Vaikuntha Loka and go back home, back to Godhead in one life. Okay, text 44. The great sage Maitreya continued, My dear Vidura, whatever you have asked from me about the great reputation and character of Dhruva Maharaj, I have explained to you in all detail. Great saintly persons and devotees very much like to hear about Dhruva Maharaj. Purport. Srimad Bhagavatam means everything in relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Whether we hear the pastimes and activities of the Supreme Lord, or we hear about the character, reputation, and activities of his devotees, they are all one and the same. Neophyte devotees simply try to understand the pastimes of the Lord and are not very interested in hearing about the activities of his devotees. But such discrimination should not be indulged in by any real devotee. Sometimes less intelligent men try to hear about the rasa dance of Krishna and do not take care to hear about other portions of Srimad Bhagavatam, which they completely avoid. There are professional Bhagavata reciters who abruptly go to the Rasa-lila chapters of the Srimad Bhagavatam, as if other portions of the Srimad Bhagavatam were useless. This kind of discrimination and abrupt adoption of the Rasa-lila pastimes of the Lord is not approved by the Acharyas. A sincere devotee should read every chapter and every word of Srimad Bhagavatam. For the beginning verses describe that it is the ripened fruit of all Vedic literature. Devotees should not try to avoid even a word of Srimad Bhagavatam. The great sage Maitreya therefore affirmed herein that the Bhagavatam is samattam satam, approved by great devotees. Text 45. By hearing the narration of Dhruva Maharaj, one can fulfill desires for wealth, reputation, and increased duration of life. It is so auspicious that one can even go to a heavenly planet or attain Dhruva Loka, which was achieved by Dhruva Maharaj, just by hearing about him. The demigods also become pleased because this narration is so glorious, and it is so powerful that it can counteract all the results of one's sinful actions. Purport. There are different types of men in this world, not all of them pure devotees. Some are karmis, desirous to acquire vast wealth. There are also persons who are only after reputation. Some desire to be elevated to the heavenly planets or to go to Dhruva Loka, and others want to please the demigods to get material profits. Herein it is recommended by Maitreya that every one of them can hear the narration about Dhruva Maharaj, and thus get their desired goal. It is recommended that the devotees Akama, the Karmis, Sarvakama, and the Jnanis, who desire to be liberated, Mokshakama, should all worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead to acquire their desired goals of life. Similarly, if anyone hears about the activities of the Lord's devotee, he can achieve the same result. There is no difference between the activities and character of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and those of his pure devotees. Text 46. Anyone who hears the narration of Dhruva Maharaj and who repeatedly tries with faith and devotion to understand his pure character attains the pure devotional platform and executes pure devotional service. By such activities, one can diminish the threefold miserable conditions of material life. Purport. Here the word Achyuta Priya is very significant. Dhruva Maharaj's character and reputation are great because he is very dear to Achyuta, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Achyuta means the infallible one. As the pastimes and activities of the Supreme Lord are pleasing to hear, hearing about his devotees, who are very dear to the Supreme Person, is also pleasing and potent. If one simply reads over and over again about Dhruva Maharaj by hearing and reading this chapter, one can attain the highest perfection of life in any way he desires. Most importantly, he gets the chance to become a great devotee. To become a great devotee means to finish all miserable conditions of material life. In other words, because Krishna is pleased with his devotees, when you read about his devotees and try to understand, Krishna becomes pleased with you. And you also get to understand the character of a devotee and become inspired. So there's multiple good things that come from studying the lives of the great devotees. What's also interesting is the nature of the goal that the devotee achieves. Whoever you study, you can achieve that same goal. But then Prabhupada says here, by studying Dhruva Maharaj, one can achieve any spiritual desire they like. So, anyway, so many things were said. Wonderful things. So text 47. Translation. Anyone who hears this narration of Dhruva Maharaj acquires exalted qualities like him. For anyone who desires greatness, prowess, or influence, here is the process by which to acquire them. And for thoughtful men who want adoration, here is the proper means. Purport. In the material world, everyone is after profit, respectability, and reputation. Everyone wants the supreme exalted position, and everyone wants to hear about the great qualities of exalted persons. All ambitions which are desirable for great persons can be fulfilled simply by reading and understanding the narration of Dhruva Maharaj's activities. Haribol. Text 47. The great sage Maitreya recommended, one should chant of the character and activities of Dhruva Maharaj, both in the morning and in the evening, with great attention and care, in a society of brahmanas or other twice-born persons. Purport. It is said that only in the association of devotees can one understand the importance of the character and pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotees. In this verse, it is especially recommended that Dhruva Maharaja's character be discussed in his society of twice born, which refers to the qualified Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas. One should especially seek the society of Brahmanas who are elevated to the position of Vaishnavas. The discussion of Srimad Bhagavatam, which describes the character and pastimes of devotees in the Lord, is very quickly effective. The International Society for Krishna Consciousness has been organized for this purpose. There it is. That's the purpose of ISKCON. No other purpose is the purpose of ISKCON except to hear and discuss the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his devotees. But not only that, but to bring others into that association. So at any rate, let's go. In every center of this society, not only in the morning, evening, or noon, but practically 24 hours a day, there is continuous devotional service going on. Anyone who comes in contact with this society automatically becomes a devotee. We have actual experience that many karmis and others come to the society and find a very pleasing and peaceful atmosphere in the temples of ISKCON. In this verse, the word Dvijanmanam means of the twice born. Anyone can join the International Society for Krishna Consciousness and be initiated to become twice born. As recommended by Sanatana Goswami, by the process of initiation and authorized training, any man can become twice born. The first birth is made possible by the parents, and the second birth is made possible by the spiritual father in Vedic knowledge. Unless one is twice born, one cannot understand the transcendental characteristics of the Lord and his devotees. Means you have to take initiation. Study of the Vedas is therefore forbidden for Shudras. Simply by academic qualifications, a Shudra cannot understand the transcendental science. At the present moment, throughout the entire world, the educational system is geared to produce Shudras. A big technologist is no more than a big Shudra. Kalu Shudra Sambhavaha. In the age of Kali, everyone is a Shudra. Because the whole population of the world consists only of Shudras, there is a decline of spiritual knowledge, and the people are unhappy. The Krishna consciousness movement has been started especially to create qualified brahmanas to broadcast spiritual knowledge all over the world, for thus people may become very happy. So again, the point of the Krishna consciousness movement is to study and worship, practicing devotional service. It's not a religious movement in the sense to cater to the Shudras or Shudra mentality. If it's too difficult for people to live in the temple or whatever, live up to according to Brahmana standard, that's fine. They should not live there because it's not for them then. Just having strong centers with just strong Brahmanas is enough to carry everything else on. We don't need to cater in any other way because simply by their realization and their potency, such advanced personalities will illuminate everyone and everyone will become attracted and interested. There's no reason to take to any other methods except for simply cultivating a pure and scientific understanding of what is God. There's no reason to cover the message, to cover what is devotional service or what is the Vedic understanding of things. Simply on its own, everyone will become pleased by the recitation of these literatures, and everyone will become enlightened. And there's no need to then cater to anything else except those people that are interested. Because just a few of those highly elevated people can save thousands and thousands of people. Okay, so text 49 and text 50. It's almost, let's see here, a few more. One more page? 2 more pages? Yeah, it's just 2 more pages. I'm going to do it. So, translation. Persons who have completely taken shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord should recite this narration of Dhruva Maharaj without taking remuneration. Specifically, recitation is recommended on the full moon or dark moon day, on the day after Ekadashi, on the appearance of Shravana star, at the end of a particular tithi, or the occasion of Vyatipata, at the end of the month, or on Sunday. I don't know if we hit any of those days, but such recitation should of course be performed before a favorable audience. When the recitation is performed in this way, without professional motive, the reciter and audience becomes perfect. you know what Prabhupada's going to talk about here. Purport. Professional reciters may ask money to extinguish the blazing fire within their bellies, but they cannot make any spiritual improvement or become perfect. It is therefore strictly forbidden to recite Srimad Bhagavatam as a profession to earn a livelihood. Only one who is completely surrendered at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, depending fully on Him for personal maintenance, or even for maintenance of his family, can attain perfection by recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is full of narrations of the pastimes of the Lord and His devotees. The process can be summarized as follows. The audience must be faithfully receptive to the Bhagavata message, and the reciter should completely depend on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhagavat recitation must not be a business. If done in the right way, not only does the reciter achieve perfect satisfaction, but the Lord also is very satisfied with the reciter and the audience, and thus both are liberated from material bondage simply by the process of hearing. I mean, this is sort of obvious if you're reciting the Bhagavatam and hoping to get money, or you're charging for people entrance into reciting Bhagavatam. Then when you try to give spiritual knowledge, if one tries to recite these things, because it's not just stories, there's serious instructions here. To give those instructions, you will be biased because you have some material motivation. So it's fairly obvious. Text 51. Translation. The narration of Dhruva Maharaj is sublime knowledge for the attainment of immortality. Persons unaware of the absolute truth can be led to the path of truth. Those who, out of transcendental kindness, take on the responsibility of becoming master protectors of the poor living entities automatically gain the interest and blessings of the demigods. Purport. Jnanam agata means knowledge which is unknown almost throughout the entire world. No one knows actually what is the absolute truth. Yeah, this is the problem. People don't actually know. Materialists are very proud of their advancement in education, in philosophical speculation, and scientific knowledge. They're actually very, very puffed up, and so when we try to explain to them what is the absolute truth, they reject it. They'll reject it because they're puffed up. But no one actually knows what is the absolute truth. The great sage Maitreya therefore recommends that to enlighten people about the absolute truth, tattva, devotees should preach the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam throughout the entire world. In other words, don't change the message, preach the message directly. Because if you don't preach the message, then you won't make a contrast between yourself and them. If you don't make a contrast between yourself and them, then they think they already know what you're talking about. Then therefore you're not actually enlightening anybody. Anyway, Srila Vyasadeva especially compiled this great literature of scientific knowledge because people are completely unaware of the absolute truth. In the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, it is said that Vyasadeva, the learned sage, compiled this great Bhagavat Purana just to stop the ignorance of the mass of people. Because people do not know the absolute truth, this Srimad Bhagavatam was specifically compiled by Vyasadeva under the instruction of Narada. Generally, even though people are interested in understanding the truth, they take to speculation to reach at most the conception of impersonal Brahman. Like every single yoga class, every single modern spiritualism is it's all impersonalism. But very few men actually know the personality of Godhead. Recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam is specifically meant to enlighten people about the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although there is no fundamental difference between impersonal Brahman, localized Paramatma, and the Supreme Person, factually, immortality cannot be obtained unless and until one attains the stage of associating with the Supreme Person. Devotional service which leads to the association of the Supreme Lord is actual immortality. Pure devotees, out of compassion for the fallen souls, are kripalu, very kind to people in general. They distribute this Bhagavat knowledge all over the world. A kind-hearted devotee is called Dinanatha, protector of the poor, ignorant mass of people. Lord Krishna is also known as Dinanatha and Dinabandhu, the master or actual friend of the poor living entities, and his pure devotees also take the same position of Dinanatha. The Dinanathas, or devotees of Lord Krishna, who preach the path of devotional service, become the favorites of the demigods. Generally, people are interested in worshipping the demigods, specifically Lord Shiva, in order to obtain material benefits, but a pure devotee who engages in preaching the principles of devotional service, as prescribed in the Srimad Bhagavatam, does not need to separately worship the demigods. The demigods are automatically pleased with him and offer all blessings within their capacity. As by watering the root of a tree the leaves and branches are automatically watered, so by executing pure devotional service to the Lord, the branches, twigs, and leaves of the Lord, known as the demigods, are automatically pleased with the devotee, and they offer all benedictions and all assistance. Text 52. This is the last text of this chapter. Translation: The transcendental activities of Dhruva Maharaj are well known all over the world, and they are very pure. In childhood, Dhruva Maharaj rejected all kinds of toys and playthings, left the protection of his mother, and seriously took shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu. My dear Vidura, I therefore conclude this narration, for I have described to you all its details. Purport: It is said by Chanakya Pandit that life is certainly short for everyone, but if one acts properly, his reputation will remain for a generation. As the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna is everlastingly famous, so the reputation of Lord Krishna's devotees is also everlasting. Therefore, in describing Dhruva Maharaj's activities, two specific words have been used: Vikyata, very famous, and Vishuddha, transcendental. Dhruva Maharaj is leaving home at a tender age and taking shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the forest is a unique example in this world. Lessons of Bhakti-Vedanta Purports of the 4th Canto, 12th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Dhruva Maharaj Goes Back to Godhead. Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Next chapter is Chapter 13, Description of the Descendants of Dhruva Maharaj, and maybe next Friday I'll read it, or sometime in the future. We'll continue reading Srimad Bhagavatam. If everyone who's here is interested in sharing some realizations, if they want to talk at all about any of this, here is the program we're using to meet and discuss. There is the Discord connection. I'm there just hanging out if anybody wants to jump in and talk about anything in here. Lots of cool things. Any questions, comments, whatever. It'd be nice to have a discussion. If not, thank you for tuning in and listening. It's ecstatic. Dhruva Maharaj is ecstatic, and it really gets even more ecstatic with Prithu Maharaj and the story of King Vena and how bad he was, and that's later on. That's coming up very soon, and I suppose I'll get to reading that live as well. But if you're watching this and it's not the live stream, comment below, put something in the comment section. And share the videos if you like it. If you want to encourage other people to join in, the more the merrier. It's just good times all around as we make spiritual advancement in understanding Krishna, the Supreme Person, and all that stuff. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna. And next time probably will be Monday, and we'll continue reading from the Madhurya Kadambini. Good stuff. So, Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Hari Hari Bol.